Great to have you here with us on TRT World. So nothing new here in terms of Israeli arguments. I mean, we hear the same rhetoric from Israel every time there is a statement or resolution against its actions against Palestinians.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Israel continues to act defiantly in the face of international law and, the orders of an international court. This is nothing new. We've seen Israel do this time and again.
Right. Lara, I just want to ask you, how likely do you think is it for Israel to abide by this resolution or order that has been released by the ICJ? Because it seems to me Israel has no interest in following the orders of the court.
Well, I don't think it's likely at all. In fact, Netanyahu said very clearly that nothing was going to stop Israel, and this was before the order was rendered. He said nothing will stop Israel, not The Hague, not anyone else. And since the order was rendered, he affirmed to keep going in Gaza, and other ministers have shared a similar sentiment in statements published online. And so, therefore, it's very clear that they're going to ignore the ruling. And in fact, just in the 24 hours since the order was issued, we've seen Israel continue to bomb Gaza. They've killed roughly 200 people in the last 24 hours and continue to block the entry of humanitarian aid and press on with evacuation orders, with the understanding, of course, that nowhere is safe in Gaza and that people continue to be displaced without any assurance of safety or security or access to basic services.
Well, Lara, let me ask you, what is the significance of this ICJ ruling? I mean, how does it help the Palestinians?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly been some frustration. Some commentators have said that they were frustrated by the fact that the order itself did not specifically expressly order a ceasefire. And I think it's important to keep in mind that had the court expressly ordered a ceasefire, of course, Israel would have ignored it anyway, in the same way that it's ignoring this current wording of the order. And so the order was certainly never capable of actually forcing Israel to comply with it, despite the fact that it's final and binding. But it still is important nevertheless, and the importance in the order lies in how we can actually use its legal findings to further the liberation struggle through now pushing on third states to stop funding and arming Israel's assault, because the court found that there's a plausible case that Israel is in violation of its obligations under the Genocide Convention. And so that then effectively puts all states on formal notice of the serious risk of genocide in Gaza, and that will then trigger their own duty to take concrete steps to prevent genocide. And so really that's one way that we can use the order of the court. I just want to say that, I think it's important for us to recall that the power nevertheless remains with the people. This decision was not inevitable. And if it was rendered, it's also because of the deep engagement at the level of the grassroots for the past 3.5 months, who have been showing up day in and day out, protesting and carrying out demonstrations, sit-ins, direct action, and so on and so forth. And that it was all of this global pressure which also helped get us to this place where we have this order with all of these provisional measures. And I'll make one last point on the absence of the language calling for an express ceasefire. I think it's nevertheless implicit in the wording of the order, in the sense that the ICJ has ordered Israel to ensure with immediate effect that its military does not commit genocidal actions like killing and harming people in Gaza and inflicting destructive conditions on them. And so therefore, there is simply no way, no conceivable way for Israel to comply with an order that instructs it to not kill Palestinians without imposing a ceasefire.
Lara, if this goes into the United Nations Security Council, what do you think will be the likely outcome? Because in the past, Israel has seen many resolutions being passed against Tel Aviv in the United Nations Security Council. And frankly speaking, Israel has very easily sidestepped all those resolutions with the help of a veto from the United States. So do you think it's likely the U.S. could possibly use its veto this time around as well, if this goes to the UNSC?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, if history is instructive, then we know that the U.S. can certainly exercise its veto in order to shield Israel from attempts to hold it accountable. It already has done so in this current instance, and it's done so previously. And so, if history is instructive, then it will certainly maintain its veto in that sense. But it's not an inevitable outcome either. It may decide to abstain. It's unclear, and if it does veto, then we can see that there's also a path for this to end up before the General Assembly, where we may see some interesting developments there. But in any event, it's never going to be on these institutions to provide us, the people, the grassroots, with a solution. It's always going to be on the grassroots to continue to push, to hold these institutions accountable, and ensure that we have an immediate permanent ceasefire as soon as possible. People cannot use this as an opportunity now to lose energy. We have to stay focused. We have to keep pushing.
Lara Elborno, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World. Really appreciate your taking out the time.
Thank you so much.